what is your current stance now on drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea, given the energy security, the Iran war that is dominating the political debate right now?
I think the wider context on energy security is a significant factor that's got to be borne in mind in all of our decision making about oil and gas development in the North Sea. We're looking at a very changed landscape now compared to the situation just a few months ago prior to the conflict with Iran. So energy security is a bigger and a more legitimate factor to consider. The second point is that we've got to, we're legally obliged to pursue a journey to net zero, and to do that, any oil and gas developments have got to be compatible with that journey. But crucially, what we've got to look at, we're going to be using oil and gas for some years to come even on our journey to net zero. So it's crucial that the assessment that's made about any developments takes into account what emissions would come from importing oil and gas from other countries. So we've got to weigh that all up in the judgments about individual decisions. And if those judgments can be passed, then of course there is a way to develop oil and gas resources in the North Sea. I think another key factor is, and this is a material factor for any incoming Chancellor, is the Energy Profits Levy, because the Energy Profits Levy just now is a complete block on investment and development in the North Sea because it's at such a high level and it needs to be removed.
So then would you say that the net zero versus other priorities when it comes to energy security and jobs, would you say that the latter is a bigger priority actually now than net zero? I
think we've got to recognise that there is a changing balance that's got to be struck here, because we are going to have to utilise oil and gas for some years to come. If there is uncertainty about the security of supply, or if security supply is undermined because of exorbitant cost, because of the effects of the conflict in Iran, these are material factors that have got to be borne in mind. But we can't, as we've found out just with temperatures in the course of the last few weeks, we are living in a much more intensely pressurised period in relation to climate change. So we have got to sustain our journey to net zero. The key factors we've got to bear in mind in judging about oil and gas developments is whether or not domestic development of these resources is a better and more compatible approach than importing from other jurisdictions.
One question about the scandal around Peter Murrell, the former SNP boss. I mean, what do you think that's done to the reputation of the party at a time where you do have a lot of big promises and a lot of change that you want to deliver? How concerned are you about this is going to, be detrimental for confidence?
Obviously, this has been a hugely regrettable set of circumstances, and I couldn't have been more open about the fact that I view this as a hugely regrettable set of circumstances. I think it's clear to members of the public that the victims in this case were the Scottish National Party. It was our resources that were embezzled, and we are trying to get those resources back, and Peter Murrell has pled guilty to those offences. So it's a matter of enormous regret. But we've just come through an election. All of these issues were very much in the public mind. They were in public debate over many, many years in advance of the election. And the SNP came out as the leading party in the Scottish Parliament elections. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we have given good, clear leadership to Scotland. We've always been on Scotland's side, and when we have something as regrettable as this, we face up to it openly and honestly and sort out the issues that arise.
You talked about how independence is still a top priority for you, but investors have warned that Scotland would face an independence premium on those kilts, particularly for the longer dated debt. I mean, does that undermine your argument, really, that the market has confidence in Scotland? I
think one of the points that gave me enormous encouragement was when we sought an assessment of Scotland's credit strength, it came back at a very, very strong and effective level. And I think, and some of the language in those reports from Moody's and Standard & Poor's was really encouraging. They talked about prudent financial management in Scotland. They talked about the fundamental economic strengths of Scotland. Now, of course, they are assessing that within the current context of the United Kingdom. But crucially, those are the inherent strengths of Scotland. We have got good, prudent financial management. The government that I lead has balanced its budget, lived within its resources for every one of its 19 years in office. We've got a strong and balanced economy with a diverse range of economic activities. So these are fundamental underlying strengths of Scotland which would be available to us in any scenario, whether particularly if we were an independent country.
So Scotland, as you mentioned, that currently does benefit from the UK sovereign backing. But how should investors be thinking about the credit risk that they could actually be taking on? And what message, I guess, would you say to investors who say that Scotland's fiscal position remains too dependent on transfers from Westminster? I
think the key point I would make is that is to encourage investors to look at the programme of my government. My government is unapologetically focused on delivering higher economic growth within Scotland. Indeed, my entire government is focused on ensuring we've got greater economic opportunity in Scotland, the ability to realise much greater returns from the economic strengths that we enjoy. So the government's programme is designed to support and to boost and to expand that. So I think from an investor's point of view, they would see a government and an economy that's focused very much on growth and higher levels of economic activity. And I think that's an attractive prospect for investors.
But top credit rating agencies have said, they have warned that there could be downgrades. While they've given it top-notch ratings thus far, they warned there could be downgrades in the event of a Scottish independence. So how would you reconcile your long-term ambitions there for independence with what is a strategy that also depends very much on stability?
Well, I think one of the points that I think is an interesting point in the debate about stability is that we've just gone through an election campaign. My government, my party's been in power for 19 years. There was, a very vigorously contested election, and we came out as the emphatic leaders of the election and with a more decisive lead over any of our nearest rivals. Now, that, to me, is an argument that the people of Scotland recognise the stability and the leadership that the SNP government offers to Scotland, and as a consequence that should be of some confidence to investors about the strength that can be offered by the SNP government.